Alrighty. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. I was just thinking that in our opening sequence, we have all of these professional creationists, and as of right now, we've only looked at I think one professional creationist. And that was Frank Turek. We haven't looked at like any of those other guys like Behe or Meyer or Berlinski, whomever. So maybe we should do that in the future. We keep going after the low hanging fruit in these
Mm-hmm.
streams. Anyway. Alrighty.
Oh, come
well,
on. We also have PZ Myers. He's not a professional creationist.
Well, yeah. Oh, it has people who are on our side like Aaron and Erica and PZ. Yeah. Well, anyway, we have guests as per usual. First, we have the host and co-host Peter. Welcome back. Glad to have you.
It's good to be back.
We have Nestlig, who is one of my editors. You guys are probably familiar with Nestlig. He's been on a few times before.
Mm-hmm. Hello.
And then we have another guest on today. This is a cat.
It's a cat.
It's a cat. Scientia Perceptum. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
No, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. We've bumped into each other on Twitter a few times, I think. You have a pretty substantial following over there. So where you get to argue with creationists and sundry. It's always fun, huh?
On Twitter,
Yeah.
that would be nice. That's even worse.
I don't normally argue with like conservatives on Twitter, but I've been seeing them a lot more in my feed recently since Muskie took over. I don't like that. I've also been seeing a lot more creationism on my feed.
To be fair, so on Twitter it usually gets into a dumpster fire. Cypher and I we hosted our last show on my channel with someone that has been fighting with me for over 3 years and had blocked Cypher, and we had a pretty good conversation. So it just.
And then he unblocked me.
Yes, Twitter's not the best thing, I think, for conversations, especially not with
or
people who deny science, because it doesn't work.
Yeah, just yesterday, to your point, I don't know how I got tagged in some post that Dapper was in, Dapper Dinosaur, and he was talking with this guy who said that, or maybe I just saw the tweet. It was on my feed. I don't quite remember how I got into it. But anyways, I saw it somehow. And this guy said to Dapper, RNA World is an utter failure. And he links this article. And I clicked on the article and I started skimming through it. And it was about a modification on the RNA World hypothesis, which isn't perfect by any means, certainly. That says we propose this new model, which is called like the protein first model or the protein and RNA model. So it's this modified sort of RNA world that incorporates these newer observations and experiments. And so I was skimming it and I said, well, first of all, it doesn't say that the RNA world's a failure. And does this mean that you agree with their model that they're proposing?
But isn't that a typical creationist quote mine? I mean, that's all they do is they quote mine these articles. They basically pick out the smallest part that they think somehow is going to support what they're saying, and they leave out everything else.
Right. It did say in the article like the RNA world hypothesis is the worst except for all the other models. Kind of like the old democracy is the worst except for all the other forms of government. Which on the last show, which we ended with Pat Powell. We checked a few of his articles. Yes, we did.
Who, strangely enough, none of them said what he said that they said, but quite the opposite. Which is 9 out of 10 times when, so he's no longer in the Hovind camp. They got a divorce and he left. So that we have to be sad.
Didn't know that.
No, I'm happy. I'm actually happy for Matt.
So
Matt has kids, or at least a child. And there are some dangerous people on the Hovind compound. So I'm very much in favor of Matt getting his family off that compound. Absolutely. They even though he's an idiot, his family doesn't deserve to suffer as a result.
No, I agree. It was kind of strange seeing him post videos where he thinks that pedophiles should be killed, and then Hovind
move to Dinosaur Adventureland.
And then in the same week, Hovind would make a video about a pedophile telling him that he wasn't that bad and he didn't do what he was convicted for.
Yeah, yikes, big yikes. Yeah, I'm very glad that they're getting out of there. So, anyway,
we have a guest in the side chat, James Downard. Hey, RJ, long time no see.
Do we? Oh, it wasn't moving up. There we go. Yes, hello, RJ. Hello. Yeah. The other okay. So there's one other thing I wanted to mention before we.
PZ's in the chat.
Oh well, hello, PZ. Wait, he's going to Michigan? Really?
Yes.
That's so funny. That's terrible. I mean, anyway. The other thing I wanted to say before we start with Wet Towel is that aside from yes, you're right. He did quote mine a bunch of articles. So a few weeks ago when we finished up with, or when we were watching Deflate talk about punctuated equilibrium, there was some really strange things that he was saying that we were trying to parse. Well, in the couple weeks hence, I've been reading up more of the like the original papers on punctuated equilibrium to try to understand what exactly it was that he was talking about. And as you might expect, a lot of it doesn't match up with what Deflate was talking about. But some of the stuff I was reading, sort of helped kind of elucidate what Deflate was trying to explain. Like, for instance, with the species selection thing. Species selection is in fact a mechanism. When we talked about it during the video, we agreed, his description of it was fine. And species selection is a thing. There's multi-level selection that occurs in evolution. But it's not necessary.
And he quoted Dawkins, who is not very much a fan of species selection. Like he's a hardened gene selection.
Right, and I reread part of a good bit of the Blind Watchmaker. I reread it this past week, where he skewers multi-level selection. Although, in fairness, he does say, Dawkins says, yeah, it happens, but it's not a big mechanism of evolution. And kind of from what I've seen, species selection in particular doesn't seem to be a major mechanism of evolutionary innovation. Like, yeah, it happens, but it's not a very big mechanism, at least from what I've seen so far.
I guess it would be most pronounced in like ecological interactions where you have different species, like how they, for example, when a predator and prey are in balance with each other, like frequency dependence. Basically, frequency dependence. When the predator becomes rare, you have more of the prey, and then when there's more of the prey, you have more of the predator, and so forth. Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it's very theoretical, I think, because as Gould and Eldridge point out, that sort of belabor this point in their original early papers on punctuated equilibrium. A lot of the study of the fossil record is like interpretation, right? It's like we are here, 300, 400 million years on trying to interpret what happened in the evolution of this clade, and we're doing the best that we can with the little fragmentary data that we have. And so
what's PZ Meyer's opinion on like a multi-level selection or species level selection? Like
that's a good question.
That's one area where I don't know much about, actually. On which level is the main level, or if every level is important. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, that's fair. PZ, if you could tell us your thoughts on that. I do want to point out a PZ comment in here. Yeah, the stupid is supposed to be concentrated in the South. Well, as someone in the South, I would much rather like share the love with all of you. You know, send some to PZ, send some to RJ. You guys can have a little bit of it too. You know, don't let me hog all of it down here in Louisiana. Anyways, alrighty, I guess we're ready to get to the Matt Powell stuff. Refresher for anyone who wasn't here. You're a Gouldian through and through, huh? All right, fair enough. For anyone who wasn't here last time, like our new guest, Powell is reading a couple of articles that claim, according to him, to prove that we evolutionists actually believe that that life came from a rock. And the citation of this article, or the citation of this claim, it was an article. It was actually a popular level article in which a geochemist kind of glibly says, yes, life came from rock and rock came from life. Because, as we pointed out last time, you can't have certain crystals, or certain crystals, certain rocks without life existing, right? They provide the conditions under which certain minerals are able to form. And that's really what he meant. He didn't mean life actually is descended from a rock, but that rocks catalyze the origin of life.
I think that's actually where he's going to start off with today. So, shall we jump in?
So we were looking through. Yep, let's do it. Oh, yes, PZ. Oh, yes, this again.
Okay, here we go.
These scientists are saying, don't thank God for life. Thank your granite grandfather rock. Because if it wasn't for him, this unconscious rock that was rained on and had minerals come out of it, then we wouldn't have even come into existence. We wouldn't have even been conceived. You know? Yeah, it's just so interesting to me that that's how this paper starts out. Thank goodness for granite. I mean,
the article, the popular level article that he's reading, not a paper. It is not a paper.
I have to say it because I'm Dutch. We know because in Germany they have found stone dildos that are older than he claims the Earth is. Maybe that's how we got conceived. I have no clue. I mean, I have to say it.
Jeez.
Also a reminder that article is not about the origins of life. It's just like at some point you have like minerals leaching from the crust, which like promoted to some type of evolutionary process.
Yeah, yes. It's the Carn-Smith. It's the Carn-Smith clay hypothesis that basically you have these certain catalysts that can occur because of certain chemical compositions of rocks that will draw in other molecules and help them combine together.
The fun thing about this article in particular is it's not even about the origin of life. It is about the evolution of multicellularity. So life, by the time multicellularity gets started, has already been around for nearly 2 billion years. And this article is not about the origin of life. It is not saying anything descended from rocks, but that multicellular organisms required, as it says here, heavy metal elements, especially copper, zinc, and molybdenum. Right? These elements were critical for the evolution of multicellularity. This has nothing to do with life getting started. It's about utilizing existing chemicals in the environment for the evolution of existing life. So,
okay.
All right. Anyway, continuing on.
Just makes you laugh when you look at this because it's mind-blowing that anyone could possibly buy into it. You know, and atheists go on and on about how that it's superstitious to believe in the devil and to believe in Satan, while they simultaneously buy into the biggest lies that only Satan could give them. The fact that they could be so deceived and so manipulated and so tricked into believing something so ridiculous is proof of Satan's existence.
Pause for a moment. This is a guy who probably believes that there were WMDs in the Middle East. Just throwing that out there, and he wants to say we believe in lies. All right, anyway, that's all I had to say.
But anyways,
I think that if they believe they came from a rock, they're not following science. Science is what we can observe and know. What do we know? It comes from the Latin word seer.
No, and once again, see right there, evolution does not say that we came from a rock.
It's just parroting what he's heard from all of the other atheist YouTubers. This guy has obviously never researched it himself.
No, he's not parroting. He is saying what every other atheist has corrected you on.
Right.
And he's correcting you again.
I meant to say it's just very, very pedantic. Like if I said that we have a hot spring where water comes out of the ground, and he will say like, are you saying like water came from sand or dirt or something like
right.
Yeah.
I liked your analogy last time. We burn calories. Are you saying there is a fire inside of you?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Continue.
Yes, sir.
Because if he did, he would realize that the fundamental of the origin of life involves rock being rained on. That the fundamental of their faith is that rocks were what brought life into existence, the minerals that were contained therein.
So actually, those claims are not identical. Saying that the rocks were required for the origin of life and life came from a rock are not the same claim. There are minerals which catalyze reactions because they facilitate the movement of electrons, right? That's a thing that happens. It happens today. You can witness it happening today, right? We're not just theorizing about that. You can see that occurring, right? So we know that that minerals can catalyze reactions, and just pointing that out, that this also probably was involved, almost certainly, in the origin of life, is not weird or bizarre or outlandish by any means, nor does it mean that the rocks came alive. Rather, it means that the common molecules which existed in the atmosphere and in the oceans and in the land, that these that reactions between them were facilitated by certain minerals. Again, that's not weird. That happens literally every day, all the time, not on our planet, but all throughout the universe.
It would be far more. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think what we need to understand is that they're basically denying that life is made of elements. That's what it comes down to, right?
It would actually be accurate to say that we all come from gases, because like your body is mostly made up of carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen. And where do those elements come from? Like for the synthesis, fixes carbon dioxide from the air, and we get our nitrogen also from the air.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. They could equally say, you're right, that we are, you believe you came from a gas, or you believe you came from water, right? These are all wrong. All of these are wrong. They're not correct descriptors of the origin of life, right? Like, it doesn't make sense to make any of these claims. It would be just as wrong to make any of those other claims, but they really don't, because they don't even know enough about the origin of life to even try to make other incorrect claims. PZ points out metalloproteases are essential for cell migration and development. So yeah, we came from minerals in that sense.
He also pointed out last time as well that like the some proteins in the electron transport chain contain like redox centers, which is
like iron sulfides, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
Yep, it's a rock. It's a rock, right?
Yeah, but Jackson, what you keep forgetting is that, and you said it's observable, but you're forgetting that those creationists, they really like the observable part, like God creating, because we've all observed God creating.
Mm-hmm.
It's
exactly
the double standard.
This isn't
the double standard is one of the things that I really hate. They want to see everything.
It's completely observable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's completely observable as well that, the reason that we need a full complementary diet, is so that we can keep up all these biochemical processes. If we got rid of something in our diet, it would really affect us, neurologically, physically, in so many other ways. We would not be able to exist if we were taking in all these elements, all these molecules, all these compounds. Something would stop happening in our bodies, it would be totally detrimental.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think we can move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is their side that they don't even understand. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
Why do you keep saying evolution is, we claim that we came from rock? It's not what the majority of people that believe in evolution, it's not what they believe at all. It's not what they say.
It absolutely is what they say.
It's not.
I mean, have you ever looked at a scientific journal on the origin of life? Have you ever looked at a scientific
journal, Matt?
on the origin of the first single-celled organisms? If they're
Keep in mind, a scientific journal is an article that you can find on a creationist website that they have found somewhere that has something in the title that will confirm their bias. That is a scientific article.
Yeah. Could you imagine trying to read a scientific paper on literally anything with Matt Powell? Could you imagine? RJ and I read a paper because we read a paper with Nephilim Free on one occasion.
Oh,
don't ever do that. And then we read a paper with Standing for Truth on a different occasion, because I can't. Oh, what was the paper? The paper we read with Nephilim was on like genetic differences between humans and chimps or something along those lines. I don't quite remember what it was.
Oh no. Is the 80% protein difference or something like that?
I honestly don't remember. What I do remember of it is like the gist that Neff made a claim about this paper. So we read the paper we're on stream. RJ and I read the paper with Neff, and we point out the paper does not say what you are claiming it says. And Neff literally says, okay, but what about this paper? And we went round and round like that for like an hour.
This is the shortest short-term memory I've ever heard of.
It's basically it's like the video of it's like where that like 30-second video where Donald Prothero like debates some creations at the Grand Canyon. It's like, okay, but you're just wrong. Yeah. And he's like, yeah. But anyways, what about this paper? It's like, no. $4.99 from Vandalia. So do we know if the amino acids that we discovered in the meteorites are 4.5 billion years old from the beginning of the solar system or younger? I would imagine
they must be from the solar system, right? Because the meteorites that we're finding are from our own solar system. But something that PZ pointed out is, we all come from electrons. And I think that kind of gets to the infinite regress that creationists like to, bring up and with their gods of the gaps. They're basically saying, oh, but if we come from rocks, where the rocks come from, if we come from elements, where the elements come from, if we come from, electrons, where the electrons come from, it's an infinite regress argument that they're trying to promote with a God of the gaps theory. Oh, you don't know the answer to it, so it must have been my deity that did it.
And if you go far back enough, you eventually come across the number 42.
Yes.
That's where everything came from. That's the whole answer.
Well, that is the question. That's the answer. You have to figure out what the question is, right?
Right.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so if you have any brain cells at all, don't ever waste them on Nephilim Free or Standing for Truth. It's not worth it. Erica does it just because she enjoys it. Just in case you guys were wondering, that's the only reason she does it.
My last interaction with Standing for Truth got me kicked from the Praise I Am channel, and I told him that I wasn't going to engage with either one of them again because they're not worth the time.
That's fair. Very fair.
I forgot what it was about, but Standing for Truth brought something up and brought up an article that didn't say what he claimed that it said, and I pointed that out, and I wanted him to read that part, but he didn't want to do it, and then I get annoyed, and then I press him. I want him to read that, and he didn't want to.
Yes.
And because I was annoyed, I got kicked. But hey, it's all fine as long as you can keep up your preferred fantasy, probably. I think.
Yes, PZ, you are correct. Erica enjoys being punished by standing, by watching hours and hours of his content and commenting on it. I don't have that capacity, so my hat's off to her.
I mean, I have a similar thing. I still watch Hovind. Weird enough, I
can't hate watch anyone. I'm sorry. I just can't. I don't have the time or the patience for it.
And it's hard to watch Hovind because he just says the same things that he's been saying since like the, when I first saw him at a Russian church in Tacoma in the when was that? That was like in the late 90s. He says the same things over and over and over again. Even when he's corrected, he keeps repeating it.
Yeah, there's a line from Donald Prothero's book, Evolution, What the Fossils Say and Why It Matters, where Prothero debated Gish back in, I think it was like the 80s. And Prothero goes first. And he, of course, is like, here's all these transitional fossils. Here's ones between like, early dinosaurs and sauropods, or early dinosaurs and theropods, or whatever. And he, gives this long list. And then Gish gets up there and just says, there are no transitional fossils for any group. And it's like, what? How can you say that? I just showed you dozens of them.
Yeah, he did the same thing with one of my mentors in college. David Milne debated Duane Gish in 1978. And he pointed out the same thing, that he, and that's why it's the Gish Gallop, because he never really points out anything that hasn't already been refuted. And when he gets called on it, he just switches the subject to something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Vandalia for 1998 for $4.99 was just asking, because I was wondering if the process we tried on Earth could also work in space, and if new ones are still being formed up there. Yeah, they are. Organic molecules are being formed, they break apart, and other ones form through a variety of processes. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to be wrong about something as simple as the origin of life from an atheistic perspective. If they're going to be wrong about basic biology, what makes you think that they're going to be correct about, say, advanced genetics or advanced biology, for example?
Okay,
pause. They're going to be wrong on
I'm sorry. The idea of Matt Powell, Matt the Air in Space Powell, lecturing people about not understanding basic biology so they won't be able to understand the advanced genetics. Get out of here. Get out of here with that. I'm not. No, I'm done.
That reminds me of that old Willy Wonka meme that says like, "Oh, you're an expert in biology. Please go on."
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God, the absolute arrogance. My goodness.
And this,
okay, I'm sorry.
This is what Powell does. He even more so than Hovind pretends to be an expert while having no knowledge whatsoever. And the worst thing is that if he has a conversation with someone, he will edit it in a way where he will just edit out all the answers to his questions, and then at the end say, what he did that with you, Jackson. At the end, just saying, well, see, they don't have the answers. No, you cut them out. That's why they don't have the answers, because they made you look stupid.
Yeah, he had to cut out everything that I said for himself to look good.
Yes.
That's how pathetic he is.
Yes. Hello.
And now he's too afraid to... He and all the other little cowards in their creationist corner, except Hovind, of course, because it doesn't matter. There's no point debating him. He's just going to say the same thing. But all the other little cowards in that corner, they won't come back.
They don't. I still think that there is a tell, because you can see that he knows that he's lying, because when he's talking, at some point, his face will get blotchier and blotchier. You can see it on screen right now. His cheeks are red and blotchy.
Are red, yeah.
And that's not the case when he starts out the video. The more he lies, the more those blotchy things show up. So I'm pretty sure he
might be watching like secret videos on that screen when the camera's turned away.
It's possible. I mean,
he's trying to keep a straight face. I don't know.
He could also be on a certain app, just grinding away. I don't know.
All right. Anyways, moving on.
Okay.
Almost everything.
The materials that eventually formed this organic matter that formed into what we consider life came from the water hitting the rock and the surface of the earth.
Nobody believes we came from rock.
Got him. He said rock.
The materials that eventually formed into life came from the rock being hit by water on the surface of the earth. The fact that they're embarrassed that they believe that life descended from rocks should tell us that we should boldly defend our faith and stand up for Jesus and what we believe in. They will mock the virgin birth, yet they believe that a rock conceived. They think it's crazy that Mary conceived, but they think that rocks, which were non-living altogether, somehow were rained on, eroded, and formed themselves into multicellular life. I
don't know how erosion works.
What a joke.
I heard that as raped on.
What I've noticed...
I'm still wondering what rained on Mary.
But it sounded like raped.
Yeah, I wonder what rained on Mary then. How did that happen? I mean, how can you sit there with a straight face and talk about that? A virgin birth. I mean, I hope Joseph believed it, because that would have prevented a lot of marital problems, but
the only person who needed to believe that was Joseph.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Actually, fun fact for anyone who hasn't seen it, I did a video on, or we over here at the channel did a video on one of the Marian sightings and the alleged miracles that have resulted from it, which was the miracles at Lourdes in France.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say they're not exactly convincing.
No.
If you ever read through like documents about scientists who actually comb through these documents of like what the Lourdes Medical Association has put together, it's like they're not very convincing. So
is it as good as like the toilet water, dripping down and people drinking it from?
Not quite that bad. But Peter did make a good point, is like, shouldn't we be more concerned about all the people bathing in the same pool?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of telling that when COVID hit, they shut down the site, which kind of makes you think, right? I mean,
Right.
If there was a place that would be safe on planet Earth, it would be.
Should have been that.
Yes.
Right.
I mean.
Right. But no, sorry, we got to close it down. People are too sick.
Yeah.
Don't come close.
You're going to catch COVID if you get here. So we'll have to shut it down. Wait, what?
We have to shut the magic healing site down, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if PZ is able to join because he has some commentary in the chat, or maybe he wants to stay in the chat.
Well, we do have. Well, this is only set up for 4 people.
Yeah, we can only have 4 people. So.
All right.
But yeah, if he wants to join next time, that's perfectly fine. All right, we ready?
Yep. Let's see what Creaky has to say.
About Matt Powell in particular, because I've made more videos about Matt than I have about Ken, is that whenever Matt says something and I think, right, that's clearly a load of crap, so let me find out exactly what it should be. Whenever he says anything, I can almost always only find any reference to that thing he cited on a creationist science website.
Wow. Every single scientific paper that I'm citing,
I want to just say
that or in a seminar, most of the time it is a secular journal. Most of the time it is the Origin of Life research team, right? That they're taking it from a perspective that's without God. This has nothing to do with creation science. Smithsonian Magazine.
Okay, can you pause it?
I wanted to have him get that out. Yes. What you put up is from a secular website, and everything in science is by definition secular.
Sure.
So And what you put, creation science isn't science.
Well, he said, I get my stuff from secular journals. No, Matt, none of the articles you've pulled in this video are from secular journals. You have pulled press releases on papers in secular journals, but the press release is not the paper.
No, it's worse.
It is worse.
It is worse.
It is.
What he shows are press releases from secular journals picked up by creationist websites, because all of the things that he, as Creaky pointed out, because Creaky did a test, and if he looks for specific text, they will always point to just the creationist websites, because there will be quotes from news site articles, science news site articles that won't be in any paper, and so they won't show up that well. But what does show up is that quote on a creationist website. So no, you're not getting your science from any secular site. You're getting it from a creationist website. All of it.
Right, or like Fox News or something like that. Yeah, he'll go to Fox News and pull like, oh, look, Fox News says dinosaurs farted themselves to death. And it's like, it's an article about a paper that like proposed a hypothetical. It just,
this is like the potholder 54 method. Like you have to go to one article that cites another article that cites another article.
To use art phrasing, it's daisy chaining.
Yeah.
Yes.
A surefire way to fart yourself to death is getting yourself locked up in a boat with one window and the door closed. Lots of animals. Yeah, they will end up farting each other to death. No problem.
Yeah.
Also, like what I want to mention that like his editing in the video is like pretty bad. Like he uses the same sound effect twice or multiple times. But, you know, like the funny it's no.
No, to be fair,
it doesn't work.
To be fair, Hollywood does the same, because there's a scream in pretty much every single movie.
Oh,
that's
or the Goofy scream or whatever.
One single scream that has been used in movies
the Wilhelm scream.
The Wilhelm scream, for several decades. So maybe that's where he got the idea.
I have to point out, Dalton says Fox News also hosts a man aroused by M&Ms. Very true. Tucker Carlson is aroused by M&Ms.
Especially the green one.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Also, like about that, just a political take. I don't believe that Carlson is being serious with that, because I think he's just trying to distract people from more important issues like healthcare or something.
You know, possible, very possible. But who are we to intrude on his fantasies? Who are we? Anyway,
but that's why he always asks questions and doesn't actually provide answers. You know, if you ever watch, him, he's always like, "What if this?" and "How about if this happened?" And he's always posing questions to make people like doubt something that he's throwing out there, similar to a creationist.
Yeah, I'm just asking questions. I'm not making an opinion. Yeah,
I still can't get over the fact that this guy is fairly popular, you would say, in the US, and 9 times out of 10 when I watch him, he has this look on his face like he's seeing water burning. He always looks surprised and having no clue whatsoever. He doesn't look like an intelligent guy to me when I just watch him. I don't see it, but
he looks constantly confused.
Yes.
Yeah, there is actually a very good video on him called from Vox with the V, not with an F. Why Tucker Carlson pretends to hate elites. It pretty much explains this whole deal, in my opinion. like as I said, like he pretends to, like, he picks a random story and blows it up just to make people think about things other than more important issues that actually affect people.
Right.
That's my thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep going.
Continue.
That talks about rocks begetting life. Yeah, that is a secular magazine. These are secular sources. These have nothing to do with Christianity.
I was muted. For the record, no paper talks about rocks begetting life. Because we know what you mean by begetting, because that's in the Bible. No. Rocks don't screw around. Creationists do.
I'll read the paper. But I'm asking you right now, how does a rock conceive?
You tell me. I don't believe that it did.
I find it intriguing how some of these guys that have a very big following, they will just make these blanket statements. Nobody believes we came from a rock. Nobody believes that, Matt.
All right, you can probably find one person somewhere who does in fact believe that humans came from rocks.
They want to make believe this alternative reality.
It's like with Matt Powell, I am convinced that he knows that he's speaking nonsense.
You mentioned he's been corrected by so many different people. When has he ever said, okay, well, I was wrong about that?
No, he doesn't do that.
Change his position. Right, he doesn't. He'll be corrected about the same thing over and over and over again and keep repeating what he knows to be wrong.
I'm actually surprised that he put that in his own video. Weird enough. I did. Yeah.
The title refutes what he is setting out to assert.
Yeah.
Oh well. He's just an idiot. So well. Anyway.
There's this quote: "Life begets rock. Rock beget life." Not from a scientific paper.
Like the fossils take the rocks, and the rocks take the fossils.
Yes.
That's what he was trying to parrot.
That's how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is about a Nova show. So again, not about scientific paper.
Mm-hmm.
Very honestly.
Oh, this is about Robert Hazen. He studies minerals. But of course, Hazen is being a bit like poetic, like life gets But what he actually means is how minerals has played a role in the process. Not that life literally came from the mineral itself.
Right.
That's not what he is saying, of course. Like again, we need to explain this over and over again. It's just very pedantic to focus on this one line and to extrapolate the whole thing from it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, continue.
Mm-hmm.
They're not interested in truth. They know that. Matt Powell's a professional liar. He knows everything he says is wrong. He doesn't care. It's a make-believe thing.
That may be true.
No,
is that it?
I was almost relieved.
Yes.
That's it. Okay.
That is
it, folks.
We made it through.
Because I figured as soon as it said subscribe for more, I was like, that wouldn't have been in the middle of the video. So, all right, well, we did it. The point of this video was Matt shows a bunch of articles from like popular science magazines or just popular magazines in general, and says, "Aha! This proves that life came from a rock." Did not cite one actual scientific source in the entire video.
Nope.
Although PZ knows people who believe we came from rocks.
Mud Fossil University. We're not doing this again. We're not doing this again. Anyway, so what were your thoughts on that, Scientia?
I think you guys have already said it, and the chat has already said it, that it's basically, just a misunderstanding and a god of the gaps. It's a misunderstanding in the way that they don't understand that, rocks are made from elements, and so are we. And, the elements that make up the crust of the earth are similar to the composition of life. And, what's the problem with that? Well, of course they should be, right? We should be made up of the same elements that the crust is made of in some similar proportions, because that's where life started, is on the surface of the earth. And so what that you have erosion actually occurring that breaks down those elements in a way that they can recombine into other compounds and molecules. It's kind of what it comes down to. They're just misunderstanding basic chemistry is what it comes down to. And they keep trying to present this God of the gaps idea that, oh, we don't understand this, when what they're actually pointing out is they don't understand how chemicals either combine together or do not combine together, because some elements will not combine with other elements to make compounds and molecules. And the way that they do combine together makes more complex, chains of these elements, and that leads to possible catalysts that can actually lead to more complex compounds and molecules.
I think it's slightly worse. It's not that he misunderstands; he doesn't want to understand. Because this is a guy who knows his way around the internet. If he wanted to learn about abiogenesis, what we know about it, if he wanted to learn about evolution, if he wanted to learn about radiometric dating, on why we know how old the Earth is, he could have done so. He does not want to. That's it.
Yeah, but he probably has done so. That's the point. That I think that he actually has done that research, because it's been given to him so often. He's looked it up at some point. He just wants to, throw these cherry-picked, quote-mined ideas out there whenever he sees something, because he wants to present something he thinks comes from a paper that supports his idea when it actually refutes him. He doesn't want to go through the whole paper. He doesn't want to show you everything that's going on.
I think what he probably does is the only articles he looks at are ones specifically referenced by creationist works. So he'll read like an AIG article about radiometric dating, but he won't read the technical paper, right? If they cite like a press release or something, he'll cite the press release and say, aha, here's what this says, because all he read was the AIG version of it, right?
Well, I'm sure if you asked him if he's ever read the rate, article or whatever, by Baumgartner, he would never understand anything that's even in there.
No. Well, I mean, in fairness, that's geology, so I'm not a geology person either. But you're right. He wouldn't ever go out of his way to try to understand it and internalize it. Although, in fairness, the Rate Project did also say that they have to like invoke miracles because they couldn't.
Yep.
Their model couldn't save them. So.
I wanna quickly respond to James, to RJ.
All right.
He says, I'm more charitable. I'm okay with regarding Matt as merely a nincompoop. I don't think he is. And the reason why is I think he has seen Kent Hovind pull in about $2 million a year, and he wants a piece of that. And so he moved to Dinosaur Adventureland thinking that we would get part of the money, and he didn't.
How does Kent Hovind still make that much money? Because he wasn't making any money, and Kent was taking it all from him.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So
how does Hovind make that much money?
Donations and stealing.
Well,
I mean, so I'm friends with his ex-wife. With his ex-wife Cindy. He scammed Cindy out of I think it was $115,000.
Well, the other thing is, when creationists are online looking for someone to emulate, they're not going to go to AIG. They are not going to read articles at Answers in Genesis or the Institute for Creation Research or Creation Ministries International. They're not doing it. They're going to YouTube, and they are watching Kent Hovind and other creationists on YouTube. That's how they're getting the material.
They're going to YouTube University.
Just a few hours ago.
It's the easiest way to get information.
Just a few hours ago, I got into a friend of mine had someone a reply to one of his tweets in which he said, if you can point out any mistake in the Bible, and I responded to that, how many legs do locusts have? And he thought that I was a creationist trying to make fun of the guy he responded to. And so this was yesterday. So today I said 24 hours and you still can't count to 6. And that kind of annoyed him. So he did send me an article from ICR claiming that locusts have 4 legs.
Oof.
The back 2 legs aren't actually legs.
Well, no, so they crawl on 4 legs. No? The back 2 legs are only there for jumping. Legs, and then
that's what I mean. Yeah.
He pointed out that the Hebrew word for beetle comes from a derivation of the Hebrew word for jumper, which then also would include the beetles having 4 legs because they have a name that implies that they can jump, and locusts have 2 separate legs for jumping, so the beetles would have...
make any sense.
No, it didn't add up.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
We are done with Matt Powell. I will try to avoid picking Matt Powell videos because he is not just low-hanging fruit. He is lying on the ground, rotting fruit.
Yeah.
So let's
fermenting, and not in a good way. Not in a good way.
I always say he's not bottom of the barrel. He is. If you roll away the barrel, what's underneath?
Yeah.
It has been rotting underneath.
I'll try to find some slightly more. Slightly higher fruit. So instead, we are going to look at another video by Deflate, just because I wanted to cover the most recent of the evolution videos he's done. He hasn't made a new one in his Darwin series recently. I think his last video came out 4 months ago. I don't know. I don't remember how long it takes him to make a video, but it's been a little while since he put anything out. It happened. Life gets in the way. You got other stuff you got to do. So
what was
this is gonna be totally new for me. I've never even heard of this guy before.
What was the title of this one, Jackson? Why it's
even remember
98% certain that there is.
Yes, no tree of life.
Yeah,
it's 98% certain there's no tree of life. Which I absolutely had to. But so this guy is a German anti-evolutionist. He is an intelligent design guy. I think
he's not a young earther.
Not as far as I can tell. In fairness, the arguments he makes could be co-opted by young earth creationists. He has not at any point explicitly defended that the earth is old.
He has not at any point defended what his actual position is.
Correct. Right. Yeah. He
that's poking holes in science, basically.
Yeah. But to give you just an example, my favorite example of something he has said at this point is he said that the entire trace fossil record of the Ediacaran was made by 2 animals. Now, I think he meant 2 species, even though that doesn't make any sense either. But it makes more sense than 2 individual animals made all of the trace fossils around the world.
Let's not be too pedantic like Matt Powell and give him the benefit of the doubt that he will.
But it's we have species, cyanobacteria trace fossils in the Ediacaran and worms and the traces of
jellyfish-like creatures,
and jellyfish it's there's no way, it's not in any sense possible. But anyways, okay, so
I want to annoy someone in the chat, someone that I bump into on a regular basis. Icarus, he says, we Germans have ID guys. Well, let me tell you, you have a creation museum in Germany, and I don't know where it has moved to, but it used to be in someone's guest bedroom, and the entire exhibit was made out of Lego and Playmobil. I'm not kidding. And this was somewhere close to the city of Heidelberg, where I used to go on vacation. And I'm really chuffed that I didn't know, because I would have visited that museum. I would have brought a camera, and I would have done an extensive interview with the guy who created the museum. He has donated it to some other place, and so I haven't been able to find it, because there used to be videos on YouTube about this creation museum, which I thought were hilarious, because I mean, I think he had an ironing how do you call it, ironing table, ironing stand,
like an ironing board.
Yes, an ironing board that was used as a side table to have some more exhibits on it. It was brilliant. I mean, Ken Ham would have been so jealous. Noah's Ark out of Lego, and then the animals were toy animals and Playmobil figures.
That is pretty crazy.
Yes.
I wanted to point out in the side chat, Random Evo Times said those two animals are Deflate's two brain cells, 600 million years elapsed. And Savage Cobra said, and they're fighting for third place.
Yeah.
Which, dang, that's pretty savage. All right. We ready?
Yes.
Let's
hit it.
Get to why it's 98% certain there's no tree of life.
Okay.
Darwin's Tree of Life is most likely not a description of how life on Earth emerged and diversified. I know that's a shocker, and yet some scientists go as far as to say that the Tree of Life has actually been annihilated by an onslaught of negative evidence. Join me for this video to find out why one of the most popular arguments for Darwinian evolution may actually be a non-starter. Hi, my name is Lucas, and welcome to our series on intelligent design and critical thinking about evolution. A short recap on the ground.
I expect where this is going.
It's not.
You think he's going to say horizontal gene transfer?
Right. Exactly. And also Doolittle.
Right. Doolittle, like Shostak, a couple other like Origin of Life guys and prokaryote researchers, and they're going to be like, "There is no tree of life. It's an orchard or a banyan because there's horizontal gene transfer." And he's going to be like, "Aha! I gotcha!" And that's going to be it. That's going to be his argument.
Yeah.
And
we can see it coming from a mile away.
And I think we have to warn people who are who might have problems with flashing screens.
Oh, that's right.
Because this guy's notorious for trying to give people epileptic attacks.
Yeah,
in his videos.
he will. His like screen. He'll put a sentence up like a word at a time, and it flashes by really fast. It's bizarre. We don't know why he does it.
Because
yes, PZ, we know they all believe in evolution, but he's gonna argue that they are destroying the tree of life. Yeah, that's how it works.
Okay.
So
let's see.
All right. We've covered so far. In the previous 3 videos, we showed how paleontology poses an insurmountable challenge to the theory of evolution. Darwin himself predicted that countless intermediate animal forms must exist within the fossil record, given that organisms gradually evolved from one species into the next. However, what the fossil record actually shows is the exact opposite, namely that whenever new species appear, they do so suddenly and without evidence of precursory forms in the geological record. The most
boy, I need to look this guy up. Jeez, you gotta be joking.
So, in case anyone wasn't here last time, what he's referring to is, well, for one thing, no, new groups don't just pop into the fossil record. He tried to make the argument that
explosion.
Yeah, the Cambrian organisms that came out of nowhere. No, they didn't actually. There are lots of, I don't know if I'd say there's a lot. There are enough.
There are quite a few transitionals in the Ediacaran.
Right. Yeah. There are bilaterian stem groups that are in the late Ediacaran. There are stem eumetazoans in the early Ediacaran. There are the remains of sponges in the Cryogenian, which is the period preceding the Ediacaran. And then we have eukaryote
animal
fossils.
embryos. Yeah.
Right, and we have eukaryote fossils as far back as like 1.7 billion years ago, and then prokaryotes going back to like 3.7 billion years ago. So no, they didn't just come out of nowhere. There's a sequence. Now it's not perfect by any means because a lot of the organisms for most of Earth's history were tiny and soft-bodied and didn't preserve very well. What a surprise! And then the other thing you tried to argue was that punctuated equilibrium is somehow an argument against evolution. Punctuated equilibrium is a form of gradualist evolution, right? Gould and Eldridge did not propose that, macromutations or saltationism, whatever you want to call it, is like the primary mode of evolution. No, what they argued was that if you take allopatric speciation seriously and you apply it in the fossil record, then you won't be able to trace a single lineage evolving through one site. What you're going to get is a population which evolves up through a site, and then you're going to see them. You're going to see like a new population which just kind of appears, and then both of these
because it's in a different area or because of a different environmental factor. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And that environmental factor is probably what caused the speciation, and that's why we don't find it necessarily in the same strata or in a similar area, because all of a sudden you have this environmental change that is not going to lay down the same strata that we saw before.
I'm going to tease both of you because PZ said everything you just said in 2 words.
That is true. He did say that. He is correct. We cannot deny. But yeah, you're exactly right. That's exactly what happens. You have this like a population which moves elsewhere, develops reproductive isolation, moves back, and then where'd this new species come from? Well, it evolved elsewhere, but it's a branch from the original population. And parapatric speciation. Yep, or allopatric, depending. And so Gould and Eldridge, formulated this idea back in the early 70s, and Deflate comes along and other creation. He's not the first creationist to make this argument by any means. He's just following a long line of creationists who were like, Gould and Eldridge are trying to explain away the lack of transitional fossils, which Gould and Eldridge say in like all of their early papers, this is a model of speciation specifically. This is not this does not apply, 1, to microevolutionary events, and 2, it does not apply above the species level. So if you're talking like adaptive radiations where you have like lots of speciation events, again, doesn't apply there either. This is applying only to speciation events. And so for creations to come along and say they're trying to explain away transitional fossils is a lie. It's just a lie. You have to. I don't believe they're just ignorant. I'm sorry. They have access to the internet. They could look this up. They've been making this argument for this long. They're just lying. They've been corrected enough times.
But Jackson, look how he's looking at you.
Do you guys have anything you want to add on that?
He's just my favorite because of the pauses. Every single one of them is I don't know.
Yeah, Matt Powell isn't very expressive, but Deflate's very expressive.
Yes.
So.
Okay, let's continue.
Yep. Yeah.
A prominent example is the so-called Cambrian explosion, which happened around 530 million years ago, when about 20 animal phyla suddenly showed up on the stage of life out of the clear blue as it.
I love the pictures that he's showing while he's saying that. He's showing a crocodile. Modern animals. I mean,
except for the trilobite, yeah.
Yeah.
He showed a bear. Wasn't there a bear in there?
Yeah.
It's like these are modern organisms. You're right.
A bear was barely there. Yeah.
Don't you know all those bears in the Cambrian, the early Cambrian? Yeah, they were all over the place. No, that's stupid. He's just being disingenuous. Okay. Anyway.
Okay.
Also, that
but with no intermediate forms from the pre-Cambrian strata. I've also talked about the total of 4 Darwinian attempts to solve the dilemma of the Cambrian explosion and have explained why all of them failed. Check out this playlist up here to get to those videos.
Okay, sorry.
Like these googly eyes instead of the compound eyes.
Right, they had very strange eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That no attempt to reconcile paleontology with evolutionary theory has succeeded, Darwinian evolutionists have come to admit that the fossil record doesn't fit with their theory, as we will see at the end of this video. For the same reason, they've started to...
It's what he was talking about with the punctuated equilibrium. He gave this bizarre explanation of, or attempted explanation of punctuated equilibrium, which just didn't make any sense. He repeated himself multiple times, made these weird sentences that were like, if the population survives and the population survives and stuff like that. It was very
what
very
does he
weird.
think paleontology is? I mean, if it's not a field that is supporting evolution, does he think it's just people out there digging up, geological formations that look like life forms, or what?
No, so basically what he thinks is, like the paleontologists are out there, they're working, and they're just, somehow they're knowing where to dig. How they figured that out is beyond me, I guess, or beyond him. But they somehow figured out we got to dig in certain places around the world for fossils. Why?
Well, that's true.
And then
come on, that we've got to admit that is true. I mean, that's how they found Tiktaalik. That's how they found where the,
the
land-based whale fossils were.
But what Deflate and all the other creationists will never explain is why. Why did Neil Shubin go to Ellesmere Island to dig for Tiktaalik? Why? Well, they don't ever talk about why, because they know that doesn't fit with their model. They know if you tell them, if you say, they went to this this island
area that had the right strata at the right date that we know was in a certain formation that was laid down in a certain area where the fossils might have actually been found, then of course that's where we should go look.
And look at a place where that particular layer was close to the surface, so it was easily accessible.
No, exactly.
That's
but
what pinpointed the location.
Kind of acts as like the paleontologists just like accidentally come across fossils, which I mean, that does happen, but like that's not the primary means by which paleontologists dig sites. And so they're just like, paleontologists just find fossils, and then these fossils just happen to disagree with evolution. And there have been some attempts to reconcile this, but nobody has come up with anything. It's this bizarre fan fiction that they've invented of the history of science,
and if people
their heads only.
If people are interested in Neil Shubin explaining what happened and why he found Tiktaalik, we did a show.
The evolution series goes over that perfectly too.
We did a show with
says how him and his colleague.
Yeah, we did a show with Neil Shubin. Yeah. We did a show with Neil Shubin on Orange Channel, and so it was talked about that and more about his work. So if you're interested, matter of fact, science playlist on Ross Channel.
Nice, because he really explains it well. He says there's only these few places in the world that have these strata at the surface where we could actually go and check out what's there, and Ellesmere Island was one of them, and the only reason that he went there is because it was like, this place is not covered by vegetation and dirt, it's exposed at the surface, it's of the right date, so that's where we should go look. And lo and behold, you find fossils there, and then he finds this really interesting one that kind of really shows that transition very nicely.
Yeah.
Another thing that annoys me is that they keep saying when people make discoveries like this, just before the funding ran out. It's like saying that I found my keys in the last place I looked. Because obviously you stop looking once you found them. This is how it works with the funding as well. Once the dig is over and you found what you've been looking for, it will have less funding for looking for the fossil, which to me is quite natural. I mean, doesn't seem that special.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Yeah. Yep.
turn their focus towards another field of study in their search for support of evolution: homology and phylogenetic trees. The importance of these two for evolutionary theory cannot be emphasized enough. Also, while lay people who argue for evolution in everyday discussions may not know the term homology, they constantly refer to this concept in making their case, and I'll show you how in a minute. The technical definition of homology is essentially sequences or structures that have a similar relation or position within an organism, corresponding in structure and in origin, but not necessarily in function. This probably seems a bit unclear for now, and it reflects the fact that biologists often have difficulty determining whether two structures or genetic sequences are homologous. But let me first sketch a few clear-cut...
Pause. Okay, so, yeah, he's probably going to pull the long story short. So let's talk for a moment about how homologies are determined. Homology, or organs, are not assumed to be homologous from the outset, right? You look at the researcher, whoever looks at the structure, the function, the development, all these different things like the genes, morphology, the development of of the structure, to determine whether or not the most likely reason for these structures in two separate species is whether this feature was shared by their common ancestor, or did it appear convergently in these two different organisms. And so for homology, so if you take something, the famous example which Darwin himself picked was the arm, the tetrapod arm, because it has the same structure in different proportions, is present in everything from amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals. We all have this same structure, just in slightly different arrangements, different proportions. Some organisms have 4 fingers instead of 5 or 3 fingers. But we all have the same bones. We all have the humerus, ulna, radius, the wrist, hand bones, and they're even the transitional, the fissiopods like Tiktaalik and Eusynopteron and Pandoricthes, who also have like the beginnings of this. They have the humerus and the radius and ulna, and so what you're left asking is, why do all of these organisms share these features? Now, Darwin, of course, proposed, well, the reason they share these features is a common ancestor. They all shared a common ancestor who possessed this version of this feature originally, and then it was passed down and from ancestor to descendants. But what creationists and intelligent design people would have you believe is, well, actually, God independently created a bunch of different organisms with the exact same structure because reasons. It just so happens that they fit in a nested hierarchy. That is only a coincidence. God, I guess, couldn't have done it any differently.
Jackson, they only say that when it helps them, because if you're going to talk about body plans, they will say, well, yeah, but God, they have the same designer, so obviously they will have the same body plan. Okay, let's talk about eyes then.
Right. So
they all have the same designer.
Homologies.
Why do animals have different eyes if they all have the same designer? It's
right.
Because they never bring it up then.
Eyes have evolved. Well, the eye is so complex. It must have been made by God. It couldn't have evolved. It's too complex. Yeah, but you just made a separate argument for the other thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's heads I win, tails you lose, of course.
Yes.
But with evolution necessarily predicts nested hierarchies of relatedness, because evolution is descent with inherent modification. So you are modifying what exists, and so each lineage, when it splits, is going to be slight modifications on that, and then they're going to split again and produce more populations, which are again modifications on that. And so that is what we expect under evolution, not under creationism. We do not expect under creationism. Creationism does not predict necessarily a nested hierarchy. Now, it can accommodate a nested hierarchy, but the only model that predicts a nested hierarchy is evolution. It specifically predicts one. And so the fact that organisms fall into a nested hierarchy based on these structures, which the most likely reason for their existence is common ancestry. Because they exist and have this, then it seems that the best explanation for that pattern is descent from a common ancestor, is not special creation. And that's just also... Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say the way that we can test that is by looking at the genes. Because, the genes are the things that encode for those anatomical structures. And if you see that the genes are the same as the anatomical structures, or that, they encode for the same ones, but they've been modified in some way to explain why those structures have changed over time, then you have this convergence of these, two different areas. You have both the actual structures themselves setting up a nested hierarchy, and then you have the genes setting up a nested hierarchy. And how do you explain that without evolution?
Right, and there are really interesting tests of that. So, like Preston, for instance, is a gene or is a protein used by like cetaceans and bats independently. And
we also have it too. Although they have a peculiar version of it that is very sensitive, or that gives them very sensitive hearing.
Right. Well, relevant to these guys, the protein is used for these similar functions, right? But the genes themselves are completely different, right? Isn't that what it is? Isn't the genes are totally different? Even though they...
I don't remember correctly, but I think that the amino acids are more similar than the DNA, the genetic sequence itself.
Yeah, I think the genetic sequence is very different, but produces similar amino acids. But it's like that sequence. Those sequences aren't shared by their common ancestor, right? But it's producing a similar function in both. And so under creationism, we could expect that sort of thing, but rampant, right?
Yeah. I actually, this is actually one of the very first arguments that I ever had on the internet of the creationist. Like I actually did an alignment myself with taking two bad Preston genes and two well Preston genes and see to the echolocating wells, are they more similar to the echolocating bats, or are the echolocating bats more similar to the non-echolocating bats, and the echolocating wells are they more similar to the non-echolocating wells? So the latter was true. So yeah, it still fits with the expectation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. This is an expectation of evolution. If the tetrapod arm were created independently for mammals and birds and reptiles and amphibians and Eusthenopteron, why would it be coded for by the same genes? That seems very deceitful. If God did that seems really deceitful. It could be that in every group, every created kind, they're using different genetic material. So maybe humans use DNA, but all the other apes use like RNA as their primary genetic material, or single-stranded DNA, or something like that. Some different sort of genetic material, such that we don't all have the exact same. There are also tests where you can do how the further you go back in time, the more that genes converge. That was that paper, Beyond Reasonable Doubt.
But I can't explain that. I can't explain that, Jackson, because both the Bible and the Quran claim that God is a deceiver, and he will deceive the unbelievers. He will deceive the unbelievers.
Teach the controversy, huh?
Yes. So, yeah, it's in the Bible. It's all biblical. So, yeah.
I mean, if you can force them to admit, like, yes, God would intentionally deceive you, then the argument's just over. Like, they've lost. There's nowhere to go from there. All right. Well, anyway, if you guys don't have anything to add, I guess then we'll move on.
Okay.
basics for you to help explain the idea of homology. It all starts with chapter 13 in Darwin's On the Origin of Species, which bears the title The Mutual Affinities of Organic Beings. In that chapter, Darwin essentially claimed that similar anatomical structures in different animals offer significant support for his theory. For example, when you look at the forelimbs of these 6 creatures, you'll find that while they may look different, they still share the same fundamental structure. This is a case of homology, and according to Darwin, supports the hypothesis that all life forms have evolved from one common ancestor.
Pause for a moment. If you've please. So, it is worth pointing out that the person who identified that all these organisms fit into a nested hierarchy was a creationist who believed that no species evolved into any other species, right? That was Linnaeus.
And Linnaeus actually said that, hey, we should put both chimpanzees and humans in the same genus because they are so similar anatomically.
Actually, it was the other way around. It was the other way around. Like, he thought that chimpanzees were humans. Like, he
they're a homo, right?
As homo, homo.
Right, exactly. It was a creationist who identified that these this pattern of similarities existed in organisms, but of course he had no way to explain it because he lived way before Darwin. And Darwin was coming along and saying, we all recognize that this pattern exists. What is the reason that this pattern exists? And that's where evolution comes in, because it specifically predicts this. Now, of course, I guess you could say it retrodicts this, but
well, it explains the patterns. It explains why we see these patterns.
Right. Yeah. Even if you didn't know the pattern existed, you would still expect to see it from first principles, basically.
Right. Yeah. Right. All right.
Continue.
Watched a YouTube video on evolution or discussed evolution with a friend, chances are those forelimbs got mentioned. Darwin's original argument from homology was concerned with anatomical structures as one could see them with the naked eye. However, the rise of biochemistry in the 20th century has opened up the possibility of investigating homology not only on the anatomical, but also on the genetic or molecular level. The idea is basically this: just as similar anatomical structures in different animals point to common ancestry and descent with modification, the same can be said of similar molecular structures in different animals. You've probably heard people say that evolution must be true because we share 99% of our DNA with chimpanzees. It isn't actually true that our DNA is 99% similar to that of chimps, but suffice to say that this is essentially a popular and simplified version of the argument from homology.
So he's kind of poisoning the well there. Technically, he's right. We're not 99, whatever it is, 99.9%.
It depends on how you measure it, of course.
Yes, exactly. It depends on how you measure. It could be, the number I often see bandied around is like 98.5. And that comes from, there's a 2012 paper by Proofer et al. About comparing like the chimp and bonobo genome with humans. But yeah, it can also, I think, drop down to like 96 if you include like all indels or whatever. But also, it also depends, because there is a very real debate on how exactly do you like align sequences. What do you consider like a difference between organisms? How do you classify large differences versus small differences? These are all things that you have to factor in that are actually very real concerns and questions, not that deflate knows any of that.
If you have a translocation, like one sequence is, or part of the sequence is reversed, basically, and or at least like you have like one sequence A and sequence B, and like the middle section, the middle 50% is of one of the sequence is reversed. Does that mean it's a 50% match now? Because like the one sequence is totally different, basically.
Right.
It's like or is it only one change? And how do we? Assigning a percentage, the difference based on such changes is very difficult to really assess. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that is a very real concern in biology, but deflate he's not trying to argue that. He's just trying to sort of shrug off the very high similarities between humans and chimps as well, it's not actually 99%, but whatever, we're just going to move on.
Well, the other thing that he just did is that he listed a few scientific findings and then said, "You have heard people say that." ... Which is
of course
which is intentionally trying to make people believe that it's just someone's opinion, other than a scientific finding based on the evidence that we have.
Right. What were you saying, Nestle?
Instead of percentages, I would just invite somebody to look up synteny dot plots, and you get a graphical representation of how sequences of one genome aligns with the other. And you can get a very, very good overview of the translocations and which parts match with which part. It's a very good overview. Of course, I cannot show it right now because I cannot screen share.
Right. But yeah, no. It's, if you put it in the live chat, people can go take a look at it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
All right. We can move on.
It's important to know that Darwinian scientists don't just point to the similarity between four-limbed legs or this and that gene and then say, evolution in a random case-by-case kind of fashion. While this may capture how homology is understood and utilized in discussions by the average person, evolutionary biologists have a more complex understanding of homology. According to them, studying homology is nothing less than the key to mapping out the entire tree of life. Evolutionary biologists who study what is called systematics and phylogeny are engrossed in efforts to reconstruct the tree of life. We'll be talking about this a lot from now on, but before we do, there is something that's absolutely crucial to be aware of for our discussion. Something which can easily go forgotten, and it's this. Evolution is not just an abstract idea or a concept. No, if evolution is true, if there was one or a few ancestor animals from which all other animals have evolved, then this means that there was one specific way in which this actually happened historically. This is perfectly captured by Richard Dawkins, who says that there is, after all, one true tree of life, the unique pattern of evolutionary branchings that actually happened. What Dawkins means, and rightly so, is that evolution is not just a theoretical concept and that it doesn't really matter how it played out in history. No, evolution must have unfolded in one specific way, and accordingly, the tree of life has one specific shape, with each branch and node of that tree occupied by a specific organism. That's why the aim of evolutionary biology is to take the idea of evolution and show how it actually played out in real life, or to reconstruct the course evolution actually took in history, and to show where specific organisms sit on the nodes and branches of the tree of life. In principle, the Darwinian argument from homology, coupled with the aspiration to draw up the tree of life, does make sense, and here is why. If it is true that all organisms are ultimately related to each other due to their descent from a common ancestor, then the more genetic and anatomical cross-examinations you run between them, the clearer a picture you get of how all these organisms are related to each other. Each comparison should help you crystallize the tree of life, so to speak. Also, and this is absolutely key, if all organisms are related to one another, then all your comparative studies of homology, no matter whether they're rooted in anatomy or genetics, should end up cohering with one another, because they would all uncover parts of one and the same big picture.
So that's not necessarily true, actually. And we've discussed this a number of times in our the Ancestors' Tale series that we've done. So there are areas of the tree of life in which you can have what are called conflicting signals. So now typically this is on, like, for most organisms, this is on local scales, but this can be scaled up in certain instances where you have, like, adaptive radiations leading to lots of different species. So let's take it for instance. There's this thing called incomplete lineage sorting. So you can have alleles that are shared by multiple species that are distributed differentially across these three closely related species. And so
shared polymorphism,
right, a shared polymorphism, and so if you were to sequence just one of these and do a phylogeny on just one of those polymorphisms, one of those alleles, then you would end up with one tree. But then if you sequenced a different one, you might end up with a different tree. Not necessarily, but you might. And so if you end up with these two different trees, Deflate comes along here and says, aha, I have you now. There is no tree of life. But it's like, no, that's not how that works.
Long story short, did the exact same thing when he said that, if Darwinism is true, then sequence phylogeny should tell the same thing pretty much no matter what gene you use. No.
Right, and we can see that's not even true. Like with local populations, you can see how genes scatter through populations that interbreed with each other. There's no single tree that explains all of these pictures. You have to use different trees to explain the lives of different genes, right?
Like even if you bring one example that even they would accept, like bears, for example. If you look up the evolution of bears, you can see a lot of like admixture and gene flow between like in specific case, I think like brown bears and polar bears, like they exchanged mitochondrial DNA, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. Yeah, because polar bears are just a population of brown bears that speciated from them, right?
Yeah. Also,
so,
yeah. I mean,
exactly.
I mean, it's like the whole genome says that the population of polar bears diverged from the population of brown bears long ago, but then I think one of them got the mitochondrial DNA from the other recently. Like it's also with the Neanderthals. Like the Neanderthals used to have their own mitochondrial DNA. And then they got our mitochondrial DNA later on.
So if you looked at a particular like mitochondrial gene, you might say, well, this shows we're more closely related to Neanderthals. But if you look at this other one, it says we're more closely related to Denisovans. Well, how could that be possible? Well, you're looking at different genes. They're not all going to have the exact same pattern of relatedness because they didn't all go through the exact same distribution or the same lineages through history. So it's not the fact that you are necessarily always going to end up with the exact same tree. Now, these trees are going to adhere very closely. If you take the consensus of genes in Neanderthals and Denisovans and humans, you're going to see that Neanderthals and Denisovans form a sister pair to the exclusion of humans. And if you do the same for chimps, bonobos, and humans, chimps and bonobos are sister, and then humans. So when you do the consensus, you're going to mostly get this one picture versus these other smaller pictures. When we also did the Gibbon's tail, we talked about how there isn't a single good phylogeny for gibbons. It's like, I think the best one had like it was like a 33% chance or something like that. They were all fairly low, but that's because of how recently they speciated from each other and how quickly they evolved. So,
but this is just an example of creationist cherry picking. They will take just 2 points and not look at the whole picture. They're gonna argue those. Oh, look at these 2 things that are different, and this somehow supports us. But they're not going to say, well, but there's also all these other things that somehow all line up to evolutionary expectations. But don't mind those things. Just look at these 2. These 2 are what's important because somehow it supports us.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When we had our whole back and forth with Long Story Short, who is making videos for the Discovery Institute now, because they're desperate to lap up every single anti-evolutionist who comes along. He made this whole argument about how, look, if you run the phylogeny, you get these branches with very low probability nodes. Therefore, evolution is defeated. And we were like, but the tree says they're low probability, therefore that they're not favored. Why would you bring this up? That's not contradictory. That's a part of phylogenetics. That's just how it works. It was very dumb. He's very dumb, and that's why we don't argue with him anymore, because he's very dumb and a waste of time. Oh, fun fact, he also said the platypus was an actual chimera. So there's that. I'm never letting that go.
Whoa.
Sorry, Nestling, I'm never letting it go. I don't care. He's
doobie.
Right. Agent P. Yeah. All right, we can move on.
Again, as Dawkins said, there is after all one true tree of life. Of course, this is not to say that mapping out the tree of life is supposed to be easy, that all comparisons should immediately fit hand in glove with each other, and that it should never be the case that evolutionary biologists will have to make adjustments as they aspire to reconstruct the tree of life.
Hey, look at that. There you go.
Can someone explain the Superman images that we just saw? Because
Peter, he has made some very strange executive choices. I don't understand any. I don't get the whole Friends thing. Like, why has Friends been up there multiple times?
Yeah.
Peter, don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah, but see, I have this thing where I'm easily distracted with weird things happening on screen, and this video has lots of them.
That's probably the whole point then.
Yeah,
he's trying to distract you.
He's trying to distract you.
Yeah,
he's trying to distract you because he's like, hey, I'm making a total bullshit argument, and look at these funny photos.
Yes, I mean, I'm still not over the part where we saw someone threaten what's his face? The Scientology
Cruise, right?
Tom Cruise, with a gun.
Cruise. That was from Mission Impossible.
Yeah,
that was from.
That was another thing that was no idea why that got in there, but apparently.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. All right.
Life. However, it is to say the following: if evolution is true and if all animals go back to one common ancestor, there should emerge from systematics at least an overall tendency towards a unified picture of how evolutionary history played out. Hopefully by now you understand what homology is and what end it serves in reconstructing the tree of life.
Today's phrase of the day is, I have no clue.
Because it's now time to give this whole...
Wait, what?
What was that? Was that projecting? I have no clue. Don't listen to me.
Well, that probably was a reference to him.
Yeah, he was admitting that he's just making this up as he goes along. And he has no clue what he's talking about.
The whole video was
accidental self-awareness.
It's like Snakes on a Plane. It was just they forgot to change the title, you know.
It was a Freudian slip if I've ever seen it.
That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
The Sean made that joke about the PragerU video, the Charlottesville lie, because they lie about what happened at Charlottesville. So he's like, "Is this like they just forgot to change the working title?"
God.
So,
okay.
Jeez.
I get what you mean. I also saw the video. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Endeavor a critical look. Ever since gene sequences began to be used to construct the tree of life, evolutionary biologists have run a wide range of studies in both genetic and anatomical homologies, comparing various genes, proteins, RNA molecules, and anatomical features between different animals. However, the results of these studies have not converged. Instead, each study ends up with its own tree of life, its own picture of how evolutionary history must have played out.
Pause.
That was a trust me, dude. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about.
Yes, that was a trust me, bro, right there. Okay.
Maybe we'll give an example.
So let us give an example to preempt him. Linnaeus, as we mentioned earlier, pointed to the fact that chimps and humans and the other great apes are all very similar to each other morphologically. This was back in the mid 1700s. Now then Darwin came along and said, yes, this is true, or this appears to be true. Here's more data to support that. Yeah. And then in another 100 years later, researchers were like, hey, here's the genes that also show this exact same relationship. How wonky is that?
Why are all those things the same? Why do we have, anatomy matching up with paleontology, matching up with genetics?
Right. It's
I wonder.
It just makes no sense. It's so off the wall. Never would have. Yeah, it's like this is just it's just bonkers. That's so wrong. Humans are within the great apes, which is within Catarrhini, a group of primates, and again, that has, I don't think like anybody's disputed that ever. This is within the primates. Primates are mammals. Mammals nest within the amniotes, so we're sister to the group that contains reptiles and birds, and then that the amniotes nest within the tetrapods, sister to amphibians, and we're both, all tetrapods are descended from lobe-finned fish. Again, that hasn't been disputed since Darwin, at least. And then fish, are related to like echinoderms. So all vertebrates nest is like sister to echinoderms. Yeah.
Negnostomes, having jaws, and then you have jawless fish, and then you have, keep going down and down and down. But, what you just said was kind of interesting, because you wouldn't believe how many creationists on Twitter say humans are not animals and we're not mammals and we're not apes. They all think, oh, no, we're just a special kind. And we're totally separate from everything else. Even when you point out the fact of what you just said, that, there's this nested hierarchy in all these different fields that has been shown over and over and over again, they will not accept the fact that we're apes. And they even go as far as to say that we're not animals.
To which I always reply with the fact, so you disagree with God on this? Because it's literally in the Bible that you are animals.
Right. The Ecclesiastes,
the Simpsons. So you're calling God a liar.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's right. It's in Ecclesiastes. Yeah, I remember that. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's see if he brings up an example to substantiate his ridiculous claim.
I can't wait.
Depending on the genes, anatomical features, and animals that are being compared. In other words, we don't get one big coherent picture, but several pictures which mutually contradict each other. For example, biologist Michael Sivanen compared no less than 2,000 genes in 6 animals from various phyla. Clearly, given the breadth and depth of his project, one would have expected that this one study would have also yielded one account of evolutionary history, one tree of life. However, here is what the New Scientist reported. In theory, Sivanen should have been able to use the gene sequences to construct an evolutionary tree showing the relationships between the 6 animals. He failed. The problem was that different genes told contradictory evolutionary stories. Not only did Sivanen himself have no problem admitting...
He's a horizontal gene transfer researcher in microbiology.
Can I also point out that he keeps saying...
Which 6 animals was he comparing?
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask too, because that's not... Yeah. He won't tell us that.
So he is... so he wrote a review that discusses the occurrence of horizontal gene transfer among metazoan phyla involving both transposable elements and structural genes for normal housekeeping functions. Can I find out? I don't know if it'll let me. Not on this one, it won't.
So basically, it's going back to kind of like Hox genes. You've got all these similar pathways that all organisms that have known tegmentation show. A head to tail kind of tegmentation.
I've also got a great a question for you guys. You want to guess when he was working? You want to guess when he was like putting out papers?
It has to be several decades ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay. The paper that was just put up there was in New Scientist, I believe, was from 2001, if I saw that correctly.
Yeah. Okay. He wrote a review in, well, that's 2012, so that's not too long ago. But most of his work, it appears.
James put it in the chat.
He did.
1994 horizontal gene transfer evidence and possible consequences. Annual review of genetics.
I'm trying to find like a specific paper or like a specific example. But anyway, the point is that he's doing he's doing the same thing. Deflate's doing the same thing that Long Story Short did. He's using examples of horizontal gene transfer as though this refutes evolution, when it doesn't. This is the same garbage we have seen before. Actually, this might be the paper. The availability of so this paper is whole genome comparisons reveal a possible chimeric origin for a major metazoan assemblage. Well, no, this isn't it. Okay, but this is a different one. So, intriguingly, by means of a novel 4-taxa analysis, we have partitioned the 2,000 proteins responsible for this assignment into 2 groups. One group, containing about 40% of the proteins, supports the classical assemblage of the tunicates with vertebrates, while the remaining group places the tunicate outside the chordate assemblage. The existence of these 2 phylogenetic groups is robustly maintained in 5, 6, and 9 taxa analyses. These results suggest that major horizontal gene transfer events occurred during the emergence of one of the metazoan phyla. The simplest explanation is that the modern tunicate began as a hybrid between a primitive vertebrate and some other organism, perhaps from an extinct and unidentified protostome phylum, at a time close to but after the diversification of the chordates and echinoderms before the lineage leading to Drosophila and Caenorhabditis diverged. Okay, I'm going to suspend judgment on that. Yeah, it's been cited by 6 people in the past 13 years. I don't think this is... Yeah, I'm gonna in lieu of doing more research on this, I'm gonna press X to doubt for the moment. But even still, this is horizontal gene transfer, which is not in conflict with evolution. So
yeah.
Anyway.
I also quickly reading the paper, and it also discusses long branch attraction at some point. So yeah.
Another thing, long story short, claimed is contra evolution. Because everything is everything that's like a problem or a question is a problem, right? Everything that's a question is a problem. So anyway,
continue.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure.
His failure, but he also moved on to challenge the Darwinian paradigm itself by saying that we've just annihilated the tree of life. It's not a tree anymore, it's a different topology entirely. What would Darwin have made of that? Now,
he said it's not a tree, it is a different topology. He is not saying that these organisms are not related by common ancestry. That is not what he is saying. He is saying that it is not a simple bifurcating pattern of relatedness. That's it. That's all he's saying. And he might be right. But that doesn't affect evolution. It just means evolution is a little bit more complicated than we originally thought, which, not a problem. That's fine.
But Jackson, you do know that every creationist will tell you that if you find one flaw in evolutionary biology, that completely ruins the entire theory. Then we have to start from scratch again. Because
of course.
Reasons.
Yeah. Oh, stupidity.
Barnum's study is not the exception. The New Scientist pointed out that many biologists now argue that the tree concept is obsolete and needs to be discarded. The evolution of animals and plants isn't exactly tree-like. Accordingly, the magazine went on to describe the Darwinian project of mapping out the tree of life as lying in tatters, torn to pieces by an onslaught of negative evidence. Other magazines have offered the same
conclusion. Again, the problem, because New Scientist, whatever it is not a scientific source. Yeah. It's a popular magazine or whatever, popular site. So it's not peer reviewed by researchers. It's just some journalist or whatever, some blogger. And so they're going to be a little bit hyperbolic, just like what's his name was Hazen was with the rocks. Life begets rock and rock begets life or whatever. It's the same sort of thing. It's like they're going to be a little over the top with their discoveries because that's how you get attention, and attention brings you funding.
Yep.
But none of the papers you ever write are going to say something as stupid as rock begets life or we've destroyed the tree of life. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, something to the effect of like, the research that we have, or the data that we have found, indicates that the tree of life is more complicated than previously thought. A better way to describe the topology of it would be like a banyan or a shrub or something like that, right? That's what they're going to say instead. They're not going to say we have destroyed the tree of life. It is completely destroyed. No, that's just not how it works. Okay. You know what this,
trends in ecology.
What this says about deflate, because RJ just, I read RJ's bit. Poor guy taking a magazine hyperbole as a stand-in for the science work is not accurately reporting, or it's not accurately reporting. In this exact same way, deflate is no different from Matt Powell. They are the exact same. They are both taking hyperbole, a statement, this slightly overhyped statement from these scientists, and they are taking that literally and arguing that literally is a refutation of evolution. So even though deflate, I don't think is quite as dumb as Matt Powell, they are in their arguments pretty much the exact same. They're using the exact same tactics.
Equally dishonest.
Right, they're equally dishonest. Yeah. Yep. Okay.
And evolution has pointed out that evolutionary trees from different genes often have conflicting branching patterns, and the Biological Reviews has acknowledged that phylogenetic conflict is common and frequently the norm rather than the exception. Antonis Rokas, who is considered a leading figure in genetic homology, concluded that despite the amount of data and breadth of taxa analyzed, relationships among most phyla remain unresolved. He went on to state that the complete and accurate tree of life remains an elusive goal. So far, we've only looked at the picture of the tree of life that emerges from studies that are gene-based. Yeah. However, the argument from homology concerns not just genetic but also morphological similarities in different animals, as we said in the beginning. And if it's true that all organisms are related, then the conclusions drawn from genetic homology should be congruent with those drawn from morphological similarities, right? Or to use an analogy,
pause. Again, he looks so happy. Look at how happy he is. When he mentioned that the relationships among some phyla are unresolved, and that's true. And part of the reason is when we're dealing with the origin of phyla, we're dealing with genes that have been evolving for like 500 plus million years, and we're trying to reconstruct events that happened like 500 plus million years ago. So it's not exactly easy. Another thing is when these clades are resulting from adaptive radiations in the deep past, that's necessarily going to obscure their relatedness. Or if we're looking at a phylum which has like 1 or 2 members, that's also again going to probably obscure relatedness through long branch attraction. So there are lots of confounding factors because nature doesn't care whether we try to, look at the genes of organisms and construct a phylogenetic tree. It doesn't care. This is something we're doing as we try to edify ourselves and understand life, but nature doesn't care.
You know what we could have used, Jackson? Something like a worldwide flood, which would have swiftly buried every single species on the planet, so we would have access to every species that has ever existed on the planet, because we would have had the fossils. Instead of
that would have been nice.
What we have now is that we every once in a while we discover something to fill a hole that we hadn't filled before, or come up with something completely new. So we have to redraw the branches on the evolutionary tree because we got a different fossil that points out that certain animals belong on a different branch. If only there had been a worldwide flood, that would have saved us so much trouble.
It would have, certainly, yes.
Shall we take this happy face away, because he's scaring me. He's larger on my screen.
Is he?
Yes, and closer to me as well. So, okay.
You can put the jigsaw puzzle together based on the shape of the pieces or their colors, and it doesn't matter whether you take this or that route or even switch between them. In the end, the pieces will fit.
It does matter, because that's how a puzzle works. You buffoon. You can't just put pieces in a different spot where they don't belong just because they have a similar color, or you can cram them in there. That
he's like no, you can just put puzzle pieces wherever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Puzzle, but anyways,
I want to see his puzzles now.
He's got like tape and glue all over them, trying to force the pieces together.
He's
None of my puzzles make pictures. I don't understand.
Yeah,
why this
my puzzles look like mosaics instead of pictures. How is that?
Right. I can never make the picture on the box. Why is that?
Oh
man, we're so mean. Anyway,
because they are
well, actually, we've got about 5 minutes left, so I guess we'll cut it off for today.
Stop at the O face.
Yeah, we'll stop at the O face. So,
sorry.
So, you guys, what's going on for you guys in the near future? Anything?
It's going to be in the next few days. It's going to be 15 below Fahrenheit.
Oof!
I know, right?
That is gross.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with that down in Louisiana, do you?
No, it's 37 degrees Fahrenheit right now. So yeah, fortunately not. I don't know what that is in communist. Sorry.
I was just trying to go over that myself. I think that's probably I don't know. I can't quite do it in my brain right now.
Yeah, we're having it slightly better. It's I think 4 below at night in the coming week. The temperature is going down just a little bit, but we've had the softest January since ages.
Oh, nice.
So did we.
It
was like in the 50s here. Yeah, 50s Fahrenheit here for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's finally feels like winter.
I'm not a winter person. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
That's true. It's been raining like near constantly for the past week. I'm hating it. Don't know why.
We've already had a warning that the south of the Netherlands, they can't protect people against the coming floods that we're going to have, because when the water starts melting on the mountains in the Alps and stuff, we're going to get a lot of floods again, and it's going to be horrendous, I presume. But yeah. So other than that, I will be doing 2 more shows with Arn Ra, Saturday and Sunday. Our Saturday, our Bible study, Blasphemers Bible. And on Sunday, we have the Book of Mormon, which in the last episode, I'm going to post that on Twitter, last episode, that I didn't know that Harry Potter was in the Book of Mormon, but apparently, according to the reading of Jimmy Snow, there were all kinds of spells in there. So I need to put that in.
Oh, okay.
He broke Arn, by the way, by reading it out and throwing stuff in there like Mishmash and Aloha Mora, and he ended on Leviosa. And I pointed out that it's Leviosa.
It's Leviosa.
No, it's Leviosa.
You guys are nerds.
So, but
on this channel,
and I'm looking forward to doing another show with Cypher, because we're going to get our creationist Tim back, who who was going to come up with a decent subject for us to talk about, which we will only learn
we don't know about, so it should be really interesting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm curious what he comes up with.
Jackson is not from the Harry Potter generation.
I mean the people when I was younger, people were going to like see the movies at midnight or whatever, but no, I never read them. I wasn't much of a fiction person or whatever, and I really don't read fiction now. So, but I mean, I know a lot of people who were like obsessed with them growing up.
You were the guy who told me to watch the several Star Wars series.
I said I don't read fiction.
Sorry.
I don't read fiction.
Sorry.
No, I watch lots of movies and TV shows, and I love Star Wars. You know, that's no problem.
But there's this thing like Peter knows this, but we have like every year we have carnival, and when I was like in my teens, like 8 years old, 11 years old, and like every year I went as Harry Potter, every single year.
Neslick, I think you might have to explain what carnival means in Dutch, because it's completely different than.
Yeah, it's completely different. Yeah.
I don't think there is something like carnival in anywhere in the U.S.
I went to one in Quebec City, the Winter Carnival. You know, with all the huge puppets and you know, the ice castle and you know, different shows going on. If that's what you're talking about.
No. This is people dressing up.
It's
whatever. And then you've got so it's kind of like a cosplay. Basically, yeah. But in the South, you also have what's called a buitenredner, someone who stands in a barrel on stage and makes some kind of a stand-up comedy routine in a specific character. And then you've got the carnival floats where you get this whole thing going down the streets with music bands.
That's what the one in Quebec is like. Yeah.
Also we have like official princes of carnival where they wear hats that include like pheasant feathers.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Now we don't have anything like that around here. Yeah.
Well, and this has to do with leading up to Ash Wednesday, which is it comes from the Catholics. It comes from the Catholics, where you have the several days leading up. It starts at the 11th of the 11th, which is the Dutch for the lunatic date. 11/11 is where crazy people is 11 for some reason. But it starts in November and then leading up to somewhere in February. And there's a lot of drinking involved. And yeah. There's
I'm excited for the couple of the videos that are about to come out on this channel, as Nestle knows. We've got
spicy ones.
We've got a very fun, spicy video that I'll probably do that one first because it's shorter than the freaking lava lizard's tail. That's a long video. But anyway, I'm excited. It was fun to write. So, but yeah, the spicy one's gonna be real fun. You guys are gonna like that one. So, is there anything else you guys want to add before we sign off for tonight?
No, I think
no, but thanks for inviting me. It was a total pleasure, and nice to meet you both, Neslig and Jackson. So,
thank you for coming on. Happy to have you anytime. We do the show same time pretty much every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central. So yeah, always happy to have you.
Unless we have a guest.
Myers.
Wow.
Yeah, I think PZ hasn't come on this show for this yet. I don't think we had Aaron on. We had Dapper on one time. We've tried to get.
Did we have Dapper?
Shannon Q has been in the side chat.
No, we
did. Yes, we had Dapper on one time.
On this show?
I don't remember.
I'm like 95% sure that
because I put him in. I put him in the intro. I put him in the intro, and from that moment on,
the Monkman show.
Yeah,
that's right. Because he was like, I'm not in the intro for this show. Yeah, you're right.
No, you had him on with the guest with the
Monkman.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a creationist on who didn't know what fertilization was. So that was fun.
I'll redo the intro, take him out, then he can join again and complain that he's not in the intro.
Please don't. Alrighty. Well, on that note, thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you all next time.
See you later.
Have a good one.